In this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about your upcoming ice castle or wheelhouse rental. We'll start on the outside and then the inside and finish with what you need to know when returning your rental. First, let's talk propane. Your ice castle comes with 2 propane tanks on the front. When you return the unit, we ask that both tanks are returned full as well. These tanks run your heat and some of your appliances, so keeping them full is important for a comfortable trip. The regulator valve will point left or right. Whichever tank it's pointed toward is the tank that it's going to draw from. Make sure the tank that it's pointed to is open. Sometimes tanks can have a bubble in the line. You'll know there is a bubble in the line if your furnace has a hard time lighting, or typically your fridge doesn't light off of propane. If this happens, start the stovetop and let that run for about 5 to 10 seconds to relieve the bubble out of the line. Now let's go through how to lower the ice castle once you're parked on the ice. Before lowering your ice castle, it's important to know how the cranks and pins work. First, flip the crank switch so the jack can move freely. Then crank upward slightly to remove pressure from the pin. Once there is no pressure, pull the pin out completely. Make sure you put the pins somewhere safe so you do not lose them. You will need them again when it's time to move the house. Then you'll flip the switch back so you can crank downward. Always keep control of the crank while lowering. Before you release the handle, flip the switch back. If you forget, the jack can free fall all the way down to the ground. Now let's lower the ice castle. Always start with the front. Lower it all the way down to the ice using the same cranking method that we just explained. Then move to one wheel well. Either side is fine. Lower the side about halfway down. Once it's about halfway, flip the switch back so it can't free fall. Then move on to the next wheel well. Lower this side all the way down to the ice. Go back to the first wheel well and lower that down till it reaches the ice. When setting up your ice castle, we strongly recommend placing wood blocks under each corner of the frame. This will keep your ice castle from sitting and freezing to the ice. If there is enough snow, use a shovel to bank snow around your ice house. This will keep the cold air from getting under the ice house and keep your ice house well insulated. At this point, your ice castle should be fully lowered and ready to fish. When you're ready to leave, you'll do the same process in reverse. Raise the sides up first and then the front last. Ensure that all pins go back into the spots before transport and that the weight is transferred back onto the pins before transport. You'll know that you've done this properly if there is slack in your cables. The last thing on the outside is your 30 amp power cord. If you're parked somewhere with shore power available, you can plug into here to run your electrical systems without using your batteries. If you don't have access to shore power, you can plug into a generator for power. Next, here's everything you'll need to know about the interior of your ice castle. The first thing to know is where your master power switch is. This controls the power throughout the unit. Typically, the master power switch is located right inside the door. Next, we have all your light switches, which control the different lighting zones inside the ice castle. In your kitchen, you'll find appliances, storage, and prep space. If you have a stovetop or an oven, that's going to be propane operated. All your storage areas are located throughout the unit. Feel free to use these for your gear, food, and personal items. When you pick up your ice castle, all the holes will have hole covers. You need to make sure that these are in place while the unit's in transport. When you guys get to your destination, pull up from the top to pop them out. And again, when you guys get ready to leave, make sure that you are putting them back in place, stepping on them to lock them down and back into place. Our ice castles have various sleeping options. Some beds are fixed and some beds require setup. If your unit has an electric drop bed in the rear, use the buttons that are located next to the bed. If your ice castle has fold-out twin bunks, all you'll need to do is push up slightly, remove the pins on each side, and let the bed drop down into place. If your ice castle has a jackknife sofa, you'll need to lift up on the base while pulling out to make it into a bed, and then do the opposite to put it back into a sofa. If you have a dinette, this also turns into a sleeper. Start by removing and storing the poles. Slide the table into the notches so it's level with the bench seating, and then arrange the cushions to make into your sleeper. Make sure that all beds are secured back into place before travel. When you return your ice castle, there's just a couple things to remember. First, both propane tanks must be full. Second, if your unit has holding tanks, they must be emptied. Just a reminder, during winter months, these tanks should not be used. You don't have your furnace exhaust pointed towards the wind. In extreme conditions, you may have difficulty keeping your generator or propane tanks from freezing. Protect them from the elements as much as possible. A great way to protect the generator is by placing it into the bed of a pickup, and to make sure that your propane tanks are protected by either a propane cover or parked out of the elements and away from the wind. The knobs on your stovetop can easily be bumped and turned on without you noticing. Check these periodically to make sure that they are off, especially before going to sleep. If you have any questions during your rental, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you for choosing GoGo Rental, and we hope you enjoy your time on the ice.